has been a while. I am Kieran Sage, she, they, any pronouns, and boy oh boy was it a really rough May. This is my April and May reading wrap-up, and spoiler, my May was rough. I did not read very much, and by very much I mean one book, but we'll get there. So, since I did not do an April wrap-up, and it has significantly more books in it than anything I read in May, I thought we'd still talk about April. I thought that would be fun for me because I had some real gems in April and some real head scratchers. So I read 9 books in April, and I might trip over myself multiple times because I've already done it and it's probably been edited out, but I'm having a time trying to remember what month it is. I know it's June, and that's when this video is going up, and as a result I keep calling April May, just forgetting April exists. But yeah, so I read 9 books in April and they averaged out to be an overall like 3.7 in terms of a reading month, which isn't great, but there's some in there that are definitely bringing the whole thing down. So I'm just gonna go in chronological order. I had a really fun time in April doing all of this. I was having a really good month reading in April, so I went a little crazy. I would not stop borrowing books from my library, and I just about got through all of my like TBR that I still had left over. So the first book that I actually read in April was A Winter's Promise by Christelle Davos, which I really enjoyed. I think it definitely had some interesting things going on. I don't like that this was marketed as a romance. It's also a translation. It's a translation of a French book. I don't love that this was marketed as a romance, and it might be like a romance series because it is a series, but I think going into this book you should expect that there's not romance in it. It is very much so a book about politics in this fantasy world, which I love. It's one of my favorite things. But it's not everybody's favorite thing whenever they pick up a book and it's about politics and not about the romance at all. This book was a little slow, I will say that. Everything is happening to the main character rather than the main character really doing much of anything, which I found really frustrating. But the world is so cool, and so is the plot that's actually happening and all the politics and stuff, so I still had a really good time reading it, even if the main character, Ophelia, didn't really have much agency. But I'm hoping that later on in the series she gets more agency and really starts to take control back. So this book is about Ophelia, who is from an outlying planet. They call them arcs, but it seems like they're more like planets, where there was some weird dissonance between the fact that it was meant to be a matriarchal society, but they still had a lot of emphasis on serving your husband. It was a little weird. Not my favorite thing. There's some I have little gripes with this book, but for the most part I had a really good time reading it. And I really enjoyed the magic system because there is magic in this book. I know not all fantasies have magic, but this one does, and it was really fun for me. The main character, Ophelia, has the ability to read the history of an object and everybody that has touched it, as well as being a mirror walker. The series is called The Mirror Visitor, I believe. So that makes sense, but she's a mirror walker. She can walk through her own reflection and come out on the other side, which is really cool. And there's other magic things happening, and the world that she gets thrust into as she is essentially married off to a man on a different arc is interesting. I don't think they're married yet, but she is basically given to him, which again, weird. She did not want to be married at all. She had a very successful museum on her home planet, but okay. And that's really where the story begins, is whenever she gets whisked off onto this other planet and she becomes embroiled in the very dangerous politics of these magic-having folks. I will say one of the gripes that I do have with this book is that Ophelia seems a little bland, but I'm hoping again that it picks up in like the next few books. This one felt like it was very much setting the scene for everything that was going to happen and not actually being much. Like, it definitely introduced us to some things and some characters, but it felt a lot more like set up for everything else that's about to happen. And Ophelia does take some agency towards the end of the book, so I'm hoping that throughout the series she becomes more of a part of her own story. Anyway, I gave this book a 4.25, which is not what it says on Goodreads, because Goodreads only lets you rate in stars, which is what I did my average based off of. But it's a 4.25. There's some things that I had problems with. It wasn't a perfect read for me, but it was pretty solid. And then I read Frankenstein, but not the Mary Shelley version. I actually read the manga adaptation by Junji Ito, and specifically I read the collection. And I'm mainly gonna rapid fire through these because it's a whole bunch of short stories, though I will take a moment to dwell on the Frankenstein adaptation because I have a lot of feelings about it as a fan of the original Frankenstein and a very big fan of Junji Ito. He is my favorite manga artist. I think the problem I had with it was that for the beginning half, it stayed very true to the Mary Shelley version, and then it quickly takes a deep dive and just changes extra little bits and pieces towards the end, which would be more interesting to me if he had changed more things about Frankenstein throughout the entirety of it. I don't think it really worked for me that he seemed so like stuck to the book of what this is going to be from the beginning, and then like took a deep dive. I wish he had some consistency with it. It was either I would have really wanted more of the horror art that he is so well known for. The art in it was still gorgeous, but I wish he would have made it more of a twist on his own throughout the entirety of it, or that he had stuck entirely to the story as it was. I think he landed somewhere in the middle, which really did not work for me. I ended up giving that one 3 stars because, again, Junji Ito is known more for his art than his story for a lot of things, and I really did enjoy the art in it, but as a story it just fell flat. I've got an extra dog in my room today and she has decided to start snoring. She snuck in here while I was getting stuff set up to record this video. For the most part, none of these stories in the Frankenstein collection really struck home for me in any kind of way. Like, they weren't particularly scary, but I did really enjoy the artwork. So I really was balancing the line of that. A lot of them got 3 stars, some of them got 4, and this collection does end with some cute dog comics, kind of, where he's telling the story of Boss Non Non. Love that dog. Very cute. It is definitely a collection that I would probably not go to first if you're just starting out your journey in Junji Ito, but it isn't one that I wish I had skipped. It's just kind of middle of the road. To give just a very quick breakdown of what I gave each of them star rating wise, I gave Frankenstein 3 stars, Next Spectre 3 stars, Bog of Living Spirits 3 stars, Pen Pal 4 stars, Intruder 4 stars, The Strange Tale of Oshikiri 3 stars, The Strange Tale of Oshikiri The Walls 4 stars, The Hell of the Doll Funeral 4 stars, Face Firmly in Place 3 stars, Boss Non Non 3 stars, and Hide and Seek with Boss Non Non 4 stars. So this averages out to about 3.5 stars for the entire collection. And this is a Junji Ito segment entirely, because the next thing I read was Venus in the Blind Spot, which is another short story collection. This one is one that I definitely would not skip. I think this had some real gems of Junji Ito's artwork, and also storytelling wise I think it was very unsettling, like in a good way, because it's horror, right? But like it struck a chord with me. I'll also just do a quick rundown of these. I might talk a little bit more about my 5 stars because there were some 5-star short stories in there, but I'm just gonna get into it. Actually, one more comment, and I think it's a very good representation of what Junji Ito does well. That is something that I definitely want to say about Venus in the Blind Spot. Even if all of them didn't hit for me in this collection, it's still a really good collection. So, Billions Alone, 4 stars, The Human Chair, 5 stars, An Unearthly Love, 4 stars, Venus in the Blind Spot, I gave 4 stars, The Licking Woman, 4 stars. That one just kind of grossed me out. I will make a comment on that, it just kind of grossed me out. Same with The Human Chair, freaked me out. How Love Came to Professor Kirita, 3 stars, The Enigma of Amigara Fault, 5 stars, which I actually was reading some of the reviews about that one, and apparently it was a republish, so it wasn't an all new short story collection. It had been published before, that one specifically, and I really liked that one. I'm glad it was republished because I don't know if I would have read it as soon as I did if it wasn't in Venus in the Blind Spot. The Sad Tale of the Principal Post I gave 4 stars, Keepsake I gave 4 stars, and overall the collection averages out to just over 4 stars, which is much better than the other one got. And that concludes our Junji Ito segment. The next thing I read was Flock by Kate Stewart. Boy, oh boy, do I have a lot of feelings about that one. I don't know what I was expecting. I knew it was indie romance. I knew it was supposed to be a kind of dark romance, and I also knew it was a reverse harem going into it. No one could have prepared me for the vibes I was walking into. I expected sex scenes. I know how indie romance is. I haven't read a lot of indie romance, but oh my god. You can also tell, even though I got a published version, I borrowed that from my library. If any of you have ever read Flock by Kate Stewart, I borrowed that from my librarian who had to put an interlibrary loan through. That poor old lady. I'm so embarrassed. I don't think I actually enjoyed anything about this book. The romance was not good, even for a dark romance. I felt like I was like 5 steps ahead of the heroine at every single point throughout it, and it was very frustrating for me to watch her slowly come to the same realizations that I had like 30 pages ago. And I just didn't like any of the characters. The main character is annoying. I couldn't even tell you her name. The first love interest, by the way, he was meant to come off as a golden retriever boy, but he ended up coming off as a fuckboy. Like that's the only way I can describe him, is that it made me so uncomfortable. I don't even know what else to say about that. And then the other one is such a dick. He's a dick for like 90 to 95% of the book, which is extra funny because the only time that I was like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this is when the main character and that love interest, the dick, were having some alone time where they weren't feeling guilty about being together, and she was finally coming to terms with the fact that she loved 2 guys, and it was a very sweet thing that was happening. Got a dog barking, sorry. It's because I'm getting heated. I expected better sex scenes, I'm gonna be honest, and they were not good. They made me uncomfortable, and there was simply way too many of them. It just, I don't know what else to say. The writing also, which I didn't have high hopes for the writing. Like the actual way that it was written, it came off very Wattpad. Anyway, I still ended up finishing it. I read all like 450 pages of that. It was like a car crash I couldn't look away from. And I gave it 2 stars. I also did look up some things about what happens later in the series, and all I gotta say, ma'am, that's fucked up. The next book I read in April was Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which is another prequel to the Hunger Games series. It sits in between Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and The Hunger Games, and it is Haymitch's story, which we already knew quite a bit about, and I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about, but I think so often about that fan-made YouTube video of Haymitch's games. I think about it so much. I'm so excited for when the movie comes out because, hey, there's gonna be a movie. And I'm going to try to convince somebody to go in theaters to watch it with me because I don't like to go in public by myself. But I had a really good time reading this. Even though we kind of knew the backdrop of what was happening and some of the details, we didn't know all of it. And we didn't know much about Haymitch's personal life besides the fact that everybody he knew and loved died, which is sad. It's a very sad way to know that that book is going to end up. So I knew it was going to rip my heart out. Only thing that I have to say bad about it is that it felt a little bit fan servicey sometimes, in like a I'm calling back to this character that you know and love kind of way, which could just be me being a little bit of a pessimist, which I can be, but it didn't feel quite right to me in a lot of the ways that multiple side characters were shoved in. Although I did enjoy seeing them, so it did kind of work on me at the same time, and I didn't take off any points for that. I still gave this 5 stars because Hunger Games, I love the Hunger Games. Yeah, I think it was a really beautiful way of telling Haymitch's story, even though it did not have a lot of hope. it's fun to know the details of his story and have that be able to recontextualize the way he is later. This also, I will note, did not have any of the pacing issues that I really had with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I struggled to get through that one. My sister struggled to get through that one, and my mom still hasn't finished it because she's at the point, which is like fairly far in, where Ballad starts to pick up, really, and she hasn't read past it. So I liked the feeling of this book. It felt a lot more true to what we know the Hunger Games to be, like as a series, than Ballad did, although I understand Ballad, of course, is taking place in Snow's point of view and not in like a tribute's point of view, which means of course it was going to feel different, but it was just nice to come back to the feeling of the Hunger Games. It was great. 5 stars! And then I read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, which is a recommendation that I got from a friend, and they weren't quite sure how it was gonna hold up because she read it back in college, I believe, very early in college, and gotta say, it held up. This book is about Strange the Dreamer and how he kind of always dreamed about going to this place because the name of this place was stolen from the world at large. And he always believed that magic was the cause of it. So he spent his entire life, pretty much, as soon as he was able, to research this city that they call Weep. That's the only way that they know how to talk about this city. And eventually he gets to go there, and it's a very fun time. There is romance in this book. It is a very fun romance. There are gods, there's magic, there is so much that I just had the best time playing around in my little brain. It was just so good, and I really loved the characters. They all felt very real, and it was nice to come to like a very well-structured fantasy, because I had some duds that I had to DNF because I just was not having a good time in between Sunrise and Strange the Dreamer. And finally I picked up Strange the Dreamer because it came back through all my Libby holds, and I was like, heck yeah. So I will say that I did not, it's not that I didn't like it, it didn't hit that 5-star read for me, and it's kind of hard to tell exactly why. I think it might be a little bit to do with the pacing. It feels very slow whenever you first start out, and it took me a couple of times to get into it, which is why I was so surprised whenever it was so good. It really picks up towards the end, but then the end feels rushed, and so I wanted more, but I had a really good time with it, and I'm actually reading the sequel. Right now. So I would say this is probably about like a 4.5 for me. It's a very high 4-star. And then we got another dud. I'm so sorry. I read The Fury by Alex Michaelides. It is a thriller being told from the point of view of this man who is very close friends with the like perfect rich woman. She's a movie star who then wasn't a movie star. It's a whole big thing. It's like a classic rich person thriller, you know? Classic rich person thriller, and I've read a few of those now. This is not one that I would recommend. I'm gonna be so honest with you. The twist is so easy, and then it gets so nonsensical so quickly, and I was just like, what are we doing here? I read this in one day, by the way, because my internet went out, so I couldn't work, so I was just reading like crazy, and I was like, what are we doing here, folks? What's happening? It felt very much like a Caraval situation. I think this book is actually closer to like a 2.5, because there are some fun things. Like, I had a good time reading it, but it was like, after the fact, I was like, why did I do that? After the fact, I was like, why did I spend my time reading that? I could have just stopped, and I didn't. Oh, I also have it with me. It's right here. I got it from Book of the Month, I guess. What year was it? January 2024? Yeah, I bought this myself. Nothing else to say, except it's kind of like a classic thriller, and then it gets really nonsensical. Not in a you can't follow it kind of way, but in a yikes kind of way. And then I think at the end of it, there's technically a spoiler for another one of his books, so be wary about that. I think it's a spoiler for The Patient at the end of this, so they're set in the same world, from what I understand, after reading reviews and being like, what did I just read? Why did I read that? All the characters are insufferable. I didn't like a single one of them, and I'm kind of very tired of this woman is perfect, she's rich, and she's beautiful. I'm kind of sick of it. I don't think I like that in my thrillers anymore. It's been a long time since I read a thriller. It's not true. I just read In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, which is a much better execution, I think, of the she's the perfect woman kind of trope. So, I say it's like a 2.5 stars, but on Goodreads it's gonna say 3. I took a break to go walk my dogs. So, the next thing that I read was actually Animal Farm by George Orwell, which I think was interesting. I definitely enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't think it's my favorite Orwell work, and I don't feel like I need to belabor the point. I'm still working out my thoughts on it, because the problem is I think I don't have very many thoughts, because it feels a little surface level, but like not in a bad way. It's a good introduction. But I think if I had started with Animal Farm much younger and then transitioned into 1984, would have had more thoughts on it back then, but I don't have many thoughts on it right now that I haven't already talked about with 1984. Capitalism, huh? I did give this 5 stars. I still really enjoyed it, but I have more things to chat about in regards to The Deal by L. Kennedy. I'm gonna be honest with you, this is not my perfect romance. In fact, it is also very Wattpad-y, but not in the way that The Flock was. In fact, I actually did enjoy this a lot, despite how I felt like some of the sensitive topics were handled. There's a lot of content warnings for this book, one of them being sexual assault, and that's a pretty big one in that one. That and physical and emotional abuse. I think both of them were handled okay, but not good in regards to how the writer was doing things. I just think they could have been handled better. Again, it felt very Wattpad-y, and I felt like a lot of things were happening for shock, and there was a big thing with miscommunication, and I'm not the biggest fan of miscommunication, but I did like the dynamic between the two main characters. This is very much a kind of like trash pocket read for me. Like, I enjoyed it, but it's like not good. It actually sparked a conversation with one of my friends, the same friend as earlier, actually, who recommended Strange the Dreamer to me, where we then were talking about her trash pocket books, and part of what you're sitting on as my like makeshift tripod situation is actually a box full of her trash pocket series. So I will be reading that because she sent them to me so I can read them. That, in fact, was my phone cutting me off because I talk too much and I don't have any storage on my phone. I'm doing great at this whole recording videos things. It's like it's not even been 2 months. So, yeah, I think it's a good series for me. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to read the other ones in the series. It's not good though, so go into that expecting it. I did give this 3 stars because while I acknowledge I did enjoy it, hence 3 stars, it's not good. It had some gems in there, I think. I think there was definitely like the bones of something good in there, but not in a disappointing way. I really did enjoy reading that. I'm so short. Why did that happen? I'll sit up. I'll sit up just for you. I think it's because my phone changed angle because it lost storage and I had to fix that. Okay, so that was all of my April reads. You could see it was a very up and down time, but I did read a lot in April, so. And then I read one book at the tail end of May, and it was actually an advanced reader's copy in ARC from my friend who I've been mentioning all video, who recommended me Strange the Dreamer, sent me a Trash Pocket series, and wrote a book. That is Sweet and Wild by Alex Larkspur, which I actually read and rated in my like all the books I read in 2024. I read it for the first time whenever it wasn't even edited yet. I was a beta reader for it back in December, and we got the advanced reader copies, and it was very nice to get into a book that I love reading, that is written by a friend I admire and appreciate so much, and getting to read it in its like final form. It doesn't have a cover yet. It cut me off again, so I had to go and delete more stuff. I've been yapping for way too long. I'm almost done, I promise. I believe the advanced reader copies are still available to be requested. If they are, I will be sure to put that Google form down in the... I will put the link to the request form down in my YouTube comments, because at the moment it's not currently on Goodreads. You can't like request or anything. We have discussed the process for getting it put up on Goodreads and everything, so eventually there will be a review from me for Sweet and Wild on there, and it is the first novella in a series of novellas by Alex Larkspur, and the romance is so good. It is queer. The hero and the hero are gay men, and they're just so sweet, and it's a very heart-wrenching story. There's a lot of content warnings, which are actually in the front of the book, and I believe on the ARC form there might be a list of it as well. Sweet and Wild follows Micah Harlow, who just moved from Steep Hall to Roseyard. And in Roseyard, he is attempting to find community, and he is finding love, and it's so sweet, and there are some bad things happening as well. And it is just a perfect romantasy. Taryn, the love interest, which I don't think is a spoiler to say, but I'm gonna double check before I like edit and post this, is a forest spirit, a guardian spirit of the forest of Roseyard, and it's a matter of Micah and Taryn falling in love, Micah finding his place within Roseyard, and all at the same time dealing with the evil people that want to take Roseyard into their own capitalistic little grubby hands. So it's very much a character-driven story, and I love that so much, and the romance is just good. Guys, just read it. It's so good. I read it as a beta reader, and it made me cry. I gave it 5 stars then. I'm giving it 5 stars again on my reread with it fully edited, and it's so good. If you can, please request an ARC, and if you can't request an ARC, buy it. It is supposed to come out on July 29th. That is Sweet and Wild by Alex Larkspur. I'm not being paid for this. This is just a dear friend of mine, and I love Sweet and Wild so much, and I can't wait for the next book. I have already read little snippets of the non-edited, incomplete second novella in the series, and it's so good. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a quick rundown of what my TBR looks like for June. Yes, correct. So I've actually already started reading some of them, and I break my TBR down by like formats sometimes, and I break it down by genres, and I also break it down just by like miscellaneous shit. So, and then I also have like friend recommendations and advanced reader copies. So my TBR is long, but it adds some variety, and it's not like I intend to actually read all of them all at once in 1 month. It's just a way for me to have variety without being overwhelmed by just looking at my big like 2,000 something TBR. So that in mind, I'm gonna be looking at my computer while I tell you about my TBR. The TBR for June is the exact TBR that I had in May, minus Sweet and Wild, but I don't think Sweet and Wild would have been on my TBR in the first place because I did not know that we were going to get our advanced reader copies, our ARCs. So for my like genres that I have written down, for my historical fiction, I have Iola Leroy by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, which is a classic, I believe. And I would have to buy that one, so it's been just languishing on my list for a while. For my horror, Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Wang. Nonfiction, In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which I am actually currently reading and intend to finish really soon. My romantasy is Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson, which I actually did finish today, but I'm sitting on that one until my June wrap up, because my sci-fi is On Strike Against God by Joanna Russ, which I know very little about and I'm not a sci-fi reader, so. Fantasy, I've got Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher, which is actually also a friend recommendation. A lot of my friends really love the Saint of Steel series by T. Kingfisher. Mystery, and then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which would be a reread for me. Classics, I've got Night by Elie Wiesel, which I've never read before. Romance, I've got The Mistake by Elle Kennedy, which is the second book. And then for the formats and miscellaneous TBR, for the ebook I've got Divide by Jessa Russo. For new releases, I've got First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, because I'm a B.K. Borison fan, has written my favorite romances. For plays, I've got The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. Poetry, I've got The Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. Big undertaking, I know. For my favorite authors, I've got City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Manga, I've got Jujutsu Kaisen 27, volume 27, which I have not finished Jujutsu Kaisen. I know a lot of spoilers and I fell off because I was getting really bored. So let's see if I can get through it because I would like to finish it. For the new series, I want to pick up Skeleton Creek by Patrick Carman, which is actually a reread and it's a middle grade read. I loved this series as a kid. Very excited to read it again. For my reread TBR, I've got Bitten by R.L. Stine. Yes, Goosebumps man. It's I believe like a young YA vampire book. It's been so many years since I read it. It's a hand-me-down from my sister. And then for series, I'm reading Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor right now, actually, and I'm having a great time, which is the second book in the Strange the Dreamer series. I believe it's also the only other book in that series, but I can't be certain. I think it's a duology. And then for my own TBRs, like my physical TBR, I've got Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. And then finally, I've got like friend recommendations and my advanced reader copies. So friend recommendation was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, which I'm gonna mention them again because they're so great. Alex Larkspur sent me their hardback because they don't really like to read in hardbacks. They like to read paperbacks. And she sent me the hardback and I want to read it so bad because I had to return it to the library early after I had already started it and really enjoyed it. I didn't have to return it early. I just ran out of time on my library loan. So, and then for my advanced reader copies, we have We Who Have No Gods by Liza Anderson, which I am currently reading as well. I'm reading a lot of books right now. Starless Sea I'm also already reading, so. I've also got Queen of Faces by Petra Lord, Edelweiss by Lloyd Hall, and A Bird Among Wolves by Tracy Leonard Nakatani. And I'm very excited about all my advanced reader copies. I've been going through NetGalley and getting some arcs, and I've been having a really good time. So, that in mind, thank you so much for watching. This is a long one. I'm looking at my voice recording thing that I'm recording separately in addition to having the audio from my phone, and boy oh boy, I yapped for a long time. This is gonna be a time to edit. So my only goal is to make sure this gets up before halfway through June. With that in mind, thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a while. I'm still working on editing things. It's just falling down by the wayside. But I really wanted to get my reading wrap up done, and so eventually I will finish Life is Strange episode 5. I've played it, I just need to edit it. So I've started editing it. Not doing great on that front though. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time, hopefully. Bye.